there are some children who are sensitive and would feel that benign neglect, as you call it, from their
There
mother.
There had to be that I didn't have, because I remember coming home from kindergarten, and she would be home, and I knew that if I took a nap, the minute I woke up from that, she wasn't going to be there, because Ethel would be there.
Well, but that happens with a lot of parents.
Yeah, but that was
you know, they can't always be
Daddy
home.
would take me to school. I'd come home. Sometimes she'd be there at lunchtime, or Ethel would pick me up. You know, that's because that was the person who I was.
Yeah, I do believe.
You know, I think
true.
that's something that's inborn.
She was never abusive in any way.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, and I was never left alone.
Absolutely.
She was never left alone.
I had wonderful
You
birthday
were always picked up
party.
on time.
My birthday parties were
David, is the
wonderful.
tape
So it wasn't. I mean, Mark was the same way, and he was never. So I really believe that, you know, after I had Mark, I started to think that, and he had the same fears as I did.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. I was never late. I made sure I was there. So it wasn't that it was a sitter. He had the same, and I really think it's something that's inborn.
So, Lainey, when were you born?
Born in June
Tell the truth.
1947, June 14th, 1947. Here, I lived also on the west side. First apartment was 85th in Amsterdam,
I
then
don't remember
91st
that
in
one.
Broadway, and then 83rd in West End.
I remember
Great
the
apartment in
on
83rd in West End.
Oh, yeah.
When,
Great
When
apartment.
did you move from that apartment?
In 1967 when we moved to Lincoln Towers. And that was it, and I still live in the same apartment that we moved to then. I've had a couple of apartments in between, but yeah, we're the first and only tenants in that apartment. And you know, I feel very privileged for the life that I've had.
Now, Lainey's husband was born in in New York, and lived in
In
New York.
Brooklyn.
Well, in the boroughs.
We finally got somebody.
And
who was
my
born in a
husband
borough.
was born, certainly in New York, in the 150s.
And who's your husband?
My husband is Orlin Katz. His parents, well, his mother was also born in this country. His father came here when he was very little.
And
Of
who's your
what
husband?
origin?
Well, now that Matthew has done a report on Poland, I know that Poland was not on the map for 123 years, but he was born in the part of Russia that was at that time Poland. Or the part of Russia that would have been Poland had Poland been on the map during that time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes?
just
And
like
who are
Jackson.
your children?
My children are Matthew and David Katz.
And who is your husband and your children?
My husband is Armand Habis, who was born here in New York City, of Hungarian immigrants who somehow or other also came to the West Side.
And
They didn't
was-
go to Brooklyn or
And
the
was
Bronx.
brought up in the 80s, you know. for
Yeah,
most
went
of
to
his
public
life.
school here.
And whose parents had a store right up the block from where we lived,
That's
on
right.
83rd right off
They
of
were around
Broadway.
the corner from where we live now. Isn't
And
it
who are your
amazing?
children?
My children are Linda, Habis Gammon, and Deborah. What's your name? Habis Aronson.
And who's your husband and your children?
My husband is Robert Kirshner, who was born in Budapest, Hungary, in 19.
That's the only thing
That's
she
a
did different.
coincidence.
Only thing I did different. And I have two sons, Richard and Mark.
Now, who are we saying that to?
I just wanted
Just for posterity.
wanted to hear a little bit
posterity.
about your summers together. Did you spend summers together?
Oh, did we ever?
Yeah.
They almost did me in, these two.
At the Colonial?
No, we can go all the way back
Oh, yes.
to
Yeah,
White Plains,
Yeah. Me too.
where she wouldn't.
Lainey
she
was
turned,
me too,
turned
for
night
me.
into day.
Yes. And whatever I did, she
He
would
was
do.
really
right?
little. I mean, I was
Yes.
just
You were
born.
very little.
And then for the
you
first
were,
few
you
years.
were a year,
First-
a year and a half.
Yeah, first and second year.
And then once she turned night into day, and because I was the teenager by that time, and there's a picture of me right here, the way I looked. I had to help out with you, and the doctor said the only way to get her to change this horrifying habit is to keep her awake all day long, every day, no nap, nothing. And so
She would
we
turn night
all,
into day. She'd
she'd
be up
stay
all
up all night and
go to
sleep all day.
All day.
And I had the job
Sounds
of
good to me. I
carrying
would do that
her
too.
around,
To this day, she wouldn't mind. This is
and then Stelly would carry her around, and of course there was a maid, always a maid. Maid would carry her around. Nana would carry her. Muriel would carry her. And after 3 or 4 days,
It changed?
it changed. And then another summer, Alan Geismar, who was then in the Army, came up, and he slept in my room with your father, and I slept in your mother's room with your mother and you had the worst case of something or other. I don't know what.
Eczema?
No, it was a flu or something. I can't remember what it was. And they gave her sulfur, and sulfurlitamide they called it. And it was a yellow powder. And I had my smeller in those days.
Oh, that, yes.
And it smelled
Like rotten eggs.
so terrible. And I had to sleep in that room. And this baby was up all the time. I don't know how I ever had children after you,
Or it didn't kill me.
right? And this one was woven in somewhere around there. I mean, she was always there, kind of.
See?
What
You know.
Poor Susie was always
I was
woven
always
in.
woven
There
in.
was,
Susie
yes.
is like
I'm
the middle child. That's
Oh,
all.
I am.
Okay,
am
the
the
war
middle
ended
child.
in 1946.
Six. World War
The Second
II.
World War II. And
Well, I
you were
want
born
people
in
to know
45.
43. And she was born
43.
in 45.
I wanted you to
47.
say
I was
that.
born in 47.
All right, so you were born after, but we were in the country when the world ended. Certainly did. When the Second World War ended, and that was in July or August.
45.
Yeah. And we all, with you, in tow, danced around the dining room table, out into the street.
Well, I don't remember any of that.
And then we got into the car. Let's go back to say that the Estelle and Cy Weinberg and Stanley and Muriel Geismar and Nana Bell spent every summer together with us in this house, in this rented house.
In this house until we started to go to the Colonial. And then
That's
we went
right.
to the Colonial for a few years.
Right.
And that was also all of us.
Right,
And
and
then
then you
your
got
mother
married.
broke off.
Yeah.
She went out to the island to.
One
one
year to
year.
Sayville
Right.
Yeah.
And then we went to sleepaway
for
camp.
1 year.
Oh wait a minute, we forgot. No, we also went to Cedarhurst.
We did?
Yeah. We were in Cedarhurst for a few years and belonged to the Atlantic Beach Club
I don't remember that.
out in Atlantic Beach.
I remember going to the beach.
I remember going to the beach too, and with those changing
Wait
things.
a minute.
Yes.
Yes, and you know, that's when I met Armand, and we were on the beach when he brought the panda
The
bears.
bears, and we used to call
And
them
we have
army
the
bear
pictures
then.
of you and Susie being held on the beach with him.
Yeah, I remember the beach vaguely.
That was, and then your mother and father went to Sayville 1 year with another
Sayville
couple.
1 year, I know.
Yes, the girl who was crippled.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, so that was my father's family.
Something, two names. She had two.
Carol Jean,
That's right.
or Jean Carroll.
Something like that. She
Something
had
like
two
that,
names.
yeah.
That was a very, I remember that.
I have pictures
I
of that.
remember that was the first summer we were apart. Because Pat and Armand used to come to the Colonial. I will never forget the first night at the Colonial, which was always a trauma for me to go, even though I knew the play. I remember the first night without Helene that summer, and I sat on the porch, I can see it now, looking out over to where that miniature train used to go or something, and there was the brook across the road, hoping that maybe Aunt Muriel had changed her mind,
Yeah.
and they would come up, because they were all in for dinner. You went to the main dining room, and I
You
would
had already
sit,
eaten in the children's dining room.
and I would sit by the door where I could see you guys in that
That's
dining
right.
room. And I sat there waiting for you. And you never, it was so, it was so, I just remember, it was so sad. And I just sat there, I'll never forget it. And you didn't come, and it was the worst summer. I think it was only that one summer, then we
Yeah,
went.
and then we
I
went
think
to
that's
camp.
when I said, I
Okay,
want
I'll
to
go
go
to
to
camp.
sleepaway camp. I swear, even though they said it was my idea, I can't believe it. To this day, I don't believe it that I said it. I went with my salt for my sore throat. But I think that was it. It was terrible. I was so
No,
miserable without
I think we
you.
went to sleepaway camp because Judy had already gone. Judy Cohn had already
They
gone.
sort of talked
Well,
us
And
you,
they
you went
took-
first.
No, we went together. I was 7. I had
really?
just
Oh,
turned
yeah.
7, and she was 10.
And the funny thing was, we get to sleepaway camp, and I'm the one who had to go take care of her, which
Imagine.
I was
I
sure.
was a baby. I had just
She was-
turned 7.
But you had
Imagine.
your friends. I had not one friend. I figured I was
Well, I
going to
know
just
from Judy Cohn.
dissolve.
By that time, she'd already moved up to Westchester. My mother and her mother were friends.
Yeah,
That's right.
it was amazing. It was amazing that we went and we survived it.
We did more than survive. We
We-
stayed for a long
yes,
time.
And they left me pregnant at the Colonial Hotel.
That's right.
The only thing before Lainey leaves is that I wanted you to talk about sort of about the dining room and about holidays and how was that? That was a big
The
part of
dining room at
what I
235
remember.
West 76th Street was clearly the focal point of the family. It really was. I mean, there were other things like the colonial and things like that we think about when all together, but that dining room.
It was a room, and it was always there. It was always available, no
And,
matter
and
what.
we did everything around that table.
Yes.
You know, we played cards around that table. We certainly
We
had
had
all of our holiday
Christmas, and
meals.
we had our Christmas.
We had
things.
we had our Christmas open presents
Yeah,
there,
uh-huh.
and all the birthday parties there, and just everything was at that table. And it was
Actually, I remember opening presents in
The den.
the den, yeah.
Because then
We
we
moved
made
it.
that. We made that
Yeah.
then Santa Claus Day. Pop loved giving gifts, and that was it. And so did Lainey's parents, Uncle Stanley. They just loved it.
we
and they
moved
loved
it,
surprises.
but for most of our life it was there.
Yeah. No matter what, and as we changed, the table just got bigger. And Patsy, you know, and then it got a little bit big. I'll even remember I was afraid to go trick or treating, and I remember dressing up in my costume, and hiding in Patsy's room, and waiting for Pop to come home. And then he would sit down and say, "Well, where's the trick?" And I would run around the table going trick or treat, and they'd give me presents, everybody.
That was it.
Right?
And that was your whole trick
that
or
was my-
treat?
Yeah, and that was my. Or I would pretend I was running away from home, and I'd go sit out the front door on the garbage.
Amazing that she even got out the front.
Yeah, for about an hour I would sit there pretending I had run away from home.
The front door or the back door?
Well, they were both together.
I know,
it
so
was-
the
I
back
was in
door by the
middle.
garbage.
I was in
Oh,
the
okay.
middle. Yeah, because yeah. But that was, I mean, yeah, those are the memories of the table. Was always there from the time that I can
It was
remember.
a big
to the time,
mahogany table.
yeah, till the time we
Old
closed up
mahogany
the
table
apartment.
with the big break front and the big buffet.
Yeah.
and-
And that was the last
It was
place.
Gedempte.
that
It was
we-
a
that
real
we were.
dining room,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's what?
That
It
was the
was-
last place we took Stelly.
We would, when Sally was so sick, she was still able to eat.
We took her. She said she wanted something from
Chinese,
teachers.
yeah.
We
Right.
took teachers.
So we brought it into her
And your father came.
sat with us at the table.
Yeah. And that was
Yeah.
and that was the last meal.
Then the
Well,
la-
also because they had their places at the table.
everybody
You know,
had their place.
Everybody had their places, but your parents in particular, Nana first, and then your
Stelly
mother
took
moved
that,
into
yeah.
to Nana's
Which was
place.
the interesting
and
thing.
your father
Yes.
always had his place
Yes.
at the table. Now,
Nobody
the-
could sit there.
No, well, interestingly enough, when in the Ten Commandments, obviously it says honor thy father and thy mother. When in rabbinical times, when they looked at honor thy father and thy mother, and decided how one would do that and explained it, one of the ways is that you never sit at your father's place at the table.
Really?
You know that
Yeah.
when he died,
And
nobody did.
Nobody did. We moved it. We put two people sort of catty
Yes,
cornered,
yeah.
Yeah.
and that
Nobody
and
ever
that
we couldn't.
that end of the table
That's right.
never sat in
And
again.
it was because it was.
It
but
was
we all
his.
did.
It was so
And that's
his.
something that's very important. That somewhere in therapy I had heard. Very important that wherever you are, in whatever house you live in, you have your place at the table. And in all of our houses, we had our place at each one of ours table, and that was very
That's right.
important.
I remember
That's
my
right.
place very well.
Always there, and then your husband sat next to you, and then we
Well,
moved,
yeah, we
and
had to move a
then we
little bit.
moved down a little bit. You were always
But
on the other side.
when I
side.
was very young, I sat next to Muriel. Muriel and I sat on this side of the table, and Pop and Nana
and stuff.
and Mother. Now, the fact that Mother relinquished that
Always.
seat to Nana was interesting too, because in most houses where the grandmother came to live, she did not sit at the other head of the table.
No.
The grandmother or
Well, I
whoever.
think that's also a piece of what we can always say, which is there was a great honoring. That regardless of what we thought and of whatever, there is a sense in this family of
Well, I
how you
think-
honor the generation
I think
before.
I think
And respect.
we've learned it, and we never taught it. It was just there, and
It's
our
just what it
children.
is.
Thank God, our children really they know it too, and that's how we perpetuated our family.
Well, it's what we know. What we think about them now is in retrospect, also.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's our
Well, we're
growing
coming
up
at
and
it
being
from
able
from
to.
grown-up eyes.
That's right, and to know who people are. There was nothing. They were never bad people. It's just to know
Not
who
at
people are and know who you know, their personalities.
Right. And clearly we can say that we came from people who cared very much to make it as good as they can for everybody.
That's
And
right.
I do believe
That's
that.
right.
Within their own abilities and
Right.
lack thereof.
And
But
lack thereof,
everybody
yeah.
has.
Do you,
We all have our.
You want, I'm just, if you need to
I do, because I have to be.
go. But I
Work.
wanted to like look at some of the pictures with you.
Oh, I can do that.
No, I
Um,
mean like look at them now while we're taping, you know, and
Well,
say,
I have
oh, that
to
was
go
so
soon
and so.
too.
Lainey has to go to work. We speak.
You can leave it on for a minute.
As we speak of working
We
people.
speak of working people. Honey,
You want to?
I think that there's too much here. If ever Jack wants to
Go through it.
go
Jack?
through it, what I can do is label each
Okay.
one, so that when you come to Harry Ernster, you come
Uh-huh.
to Grandma Weinberg or Poppy, although these are,
You know, it would be good to be able to sort of, at some point, just sort of put some pictures in so that everybody knows
Yeah.
who these people were.
look at them at your wedding,
Susie's.
at Susie's wedding.
That's Uncle Abe.
Oh, that's the one.
Let me see.
Uncle
That's
Abe.
the only
I have
picture of
every
Uncle
picture
Abe.
in my wedding album is Uncle Abe, just like that, because the photographer took the picture like this, and he was in every goddamn picture.
Oh no.
See him?
What a nightmare. But this is the picture that we remember. With this guy. With this guy.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
pretty.
Getting into the
shot.
picture.
And Barbara Dornberg.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Did I
beautiful?
tell you she came to the temple?
And who's the boy next to you? Who are these two boys?
I have no
One
idea.
was Russell or something. Wasn't this Russell?
Larry.
Oh, Larry? And who's this?
Now, what age were you that mother and father gave you such a big party
I
that I
always
never
had
had?
these parties.
turn it off?
I always had. That's Jane Dornberg's. That's her.
That's Jane Dornberg.
That- that's
right. That's Barbara.
Barbara and
That's
Jane,
Jane,
yeah.
me.
I don't remember. Yeah, this was definitely Larry. I forget who that was. You know who was at one of them was Steve Bochco. He was in my class.
I have a lot of pictures of
Mm-hmm.
you guys here. See, nobody looks like that.
We didn't look like anybody looked like that. Blonde hair.
I thought Linda.
Poppy and Richard.
Yes, she did. Linda did.
Now, this is your handwriting?
Yeah,
Change.
Well, then this must be your book,
Yeah.
sweetie. So why do I have it?
because I fixed it for Stelly and Poppy.
Oh, well, at some point
It
we
was in
have to
their
decide.
See, I got
Here's
everybody-
Nana.
I got everybody
Yeah,
together.
that's how I remember her.
Yeah.
Here,
Look at
Jack,
you,
take
the
this.
baby. And that's Richard.
What was this?
We're not. We're finished.
But what did we finish on?
We finished on
That we were-
people
that-
be really caring about
We
Oh,
care
okay.
very much for each other.
Now I want to see it.
all 12 hours.
I'm gonna go. Are you gonna stay?
Maybe I have to go too.